Hey, it's Elijah, and today we're going to be talking about one of my most anticipated games of this year, Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake. A faithful reimagining that attempts to modernize and refine the 1988 classic for modern audiences. I was lucky enough to be able to receive an early copy and play through the opening hours, getting a hands-on experience with the game as a whole. And spoiler alert, I absolutely adored it. But before we delve in, I would love it if you could like, comment, and subscribe. It would mean the world to me and help this channel grow. Now, to give a little history, I've been playing JRPGs my entire life. I was playing them before I even knew what the term meant. They were unlike anything else I experienced at the time. I found myself immersed in their worlds, growing close with the characters as we embarked on unimaginable journeys together. The scope and scale of these games were well beyond my comprehension, and I spent dozens, if not hundreds of hours losing myself to the genre. Some of my fondest gaming memories stemmed from these games, and the JRPG genre became a cornerstone of what I love about this medium. But one franchise always slipped through the radar. For most of my years growing up, Dragon Quest was neglected in the West. It never had the mainstream appeal that Final Fantasy did, or the attention that Persona does now. And despite loving the genre, I didn't even know the franchise existed. It wasn't until 2020 that I took the plunge and tried out Dragon Quest XI for the first time. It was one of the greatest gaming decisions I've ever made. I spent my entire winter playing the game, dedicating over 100 hours to everything it had to offer. It gave me comfort during one of the most difficult and overwhelming periods of my life, and I became a fan forever. As soon as I beat it, I purchased the original trilogy on my Nintendo Switch and plowed through them all in a couple of weeks. From that point on, I became addicted. I purchased a 3DS off eBay and played through Dragon Quest IV, 5, and 6. And as the year progressed, I hopped into 7, 8, and 9, finishing my series playthrough in a little over a year. There was just something special about the series. Each game retained the Dragon Quest identity with every iteration, expanding and experimenting just enough to make each one unique. When you start up a new Dragon Quest, you know exactly what it'll be, and there's comfort in that. It's the equivalent to going home for the holidays and having the same homemade meal your mother has made for you since you were a child. Playing Dragon Quest makes me feel like a kid again, and I'm sure it does for a lot of other people too. Aside from a handful of spin-offs here and there, mainline Dragon Quest games are quite rare. You only get one every handful of years, if even that. It's been 4 years since the release of Dragon Quest XI's, and 6 years since the release of the original. So, despite not being a completely new title, Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake garnered a lot of hype. It's not only regarded as one of the best Dragon Quest games, but one of the best JRPGs of all time. When I played through the first 3 Dragon Quest games, I was shocked to see how well they held up. The first 2 were great despite their flaws, but the third was something else. I couldn't believe how incredible the game was. It felt like something that could have been released today. I spent over 30 hours playing through the game, grinding metal slimes, exploring the vast and expanding world, and experimenting with vocations. It quickly shot up to one of my favorite RPGs of all time, and solidified Dragon Quest as a series that has always been fantastic. So after 36 years, does Dragon Quest III really stand up to the test of time with this new remake? 100%. When you start up Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake, you're presented with a few questions. You input the name of your character, choose their gender, and then the difficulty. Afterwards, you load into this beautiful scene of a forest. The grass, trees, and leaves wave in the wind as you stand there, taking it all in. Progressing forward, you find yourself at the edge of a cliff when a bright light speaks. It starts asking you questions, trying to determine what type of person you are and the stats you'll start out with. Eventually, It insults you in a variety of ways based off of your answers, and then sends you off on your journey. In a classic JRPG trope, one that may have even started with this game, you get woken up by your mother. It's your 16th birthday, and it's time to follow in your father's footsteps. You speak with the king and get assigned the duty to kill the archfiend Baramos, saving the world. Afterwards, the game guides you to Paddy's, where you can recruit up to 3 other party members for the journey, or make them from scratch yourself. And with that, you're off to adventure. Unlike most modern RPGs, the early Dragon Quest games are all about exploration. They don't pigeonhole you into a 5-hour tutorial, guiding you from NPC to NPC as you slowly familiarize yourself with the world. In fact, the original titles are almost a little too obtuse and indirect with where you go. When I played them back in 2021, I used a guide to help steer me in the right direction. Luckily, the remake solves this problem with ease. Now, characters are more specific with their guidance. You can also save these conversations with the new recall feature, and you can even enable an option that highlights exactly where you need to go on the map. These quality of life changes may seem small, but they make a big difference in the grand scheme of things. Throughout my first few hours, I also noticed a variety of other subtle changes. The overworld is expanded and has helpful items and equipment scattered throughout. You can also use zoom and the chimera wings inside of buildings. There are 3 different battle speeds that are adjustable on the fly, and there are also local maps in addition to the world map. And with my experience, the game felt a tad bit more forgiving with its early combat. All of this modernizes it for a new audience, while still retaining its core qualities. The biggest difference is the inclusion of voice acting. It initially took me by surprise. I had no idea that it was included, and while I prefer to not have voice acting in my old school RPGs, I didn't really mind it. It's only there for certain characters and a few pivotal moments in the story, and everything else is still rooted in text. And that's where so much of the Dragon Quest charm appears. Talking to random NPCs in a typical game is often a waste of time. They're only ever there to fill the world and give the appearance that it's actually alive. But Dragon Quest has always been different. No matter who they are, each character has so much personality with their dialogue. It's not necessary to talk to every character you see, but I just can't help it when I play. It's a delight every time. Out of everything the game has to offer, the combat may be what holds it back for modern audiences. That's not to say it's bad, far from it. Dragon Quest games are rooted in simplicity. You start off a battle by choosing your actions for each member of your party, and then watch it unfold. There's a lot of depth and complexity to it as the game evolves, especially when it comes to vocations and the endgame content. But the core gameplay loop never changes, and to be fair, it's not as robust as other JRPGs. It is still heavily reliant on random encounters. Its presentation within the battles is still subdued, and grinding is just as relevant as ever. I personally love these old school elements, but I know that it could deter some people away. But on a note we can all agree on, the presentation of Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake is breathtaking. From the classic, swooning music with an all-new orchestral rendition, to the stunning 2.5D art style that revitalizes Akira Toriyama's vision from all those years ago. There's already been a handful of times where I was so taken aback by the beauty of the visuals and the moving score that I just sat there, soaking it all up. It's arguably one of the best recreations in sheer presentation alone, and it's had quite a bit of competition over the years. The design of the game is impeccable. In your first few hours alone, you're presented with this massive landscape. You leave Liahan, see a tower in the distance isolated on an island, and then progress north to Reeve. From there, you travel south to an underground passage connecting you to the Dreamer's Tower and Liahan. You fight through the tower, receive the Thieves' Key, and head back to Reeve to talk to the old bomb maker, Who allows you to open up and unlock a portal on the other side of the island. You step through, open your map, and discover just how massive this game actually is. It's one of the best introductions to a game ever, and we've barely even started. I love Dragon Quest, and I have fallen in love with 3 all over again. This remake is exactly what I wanted, and I couldn't be happier with its execution. I can't wait to lose myself in the world all over again once my schedule clears up later this year. If you have any interest at all in Dragon Quest, the HD 2D remake is the perfect starting out point. But don't worry about it being the 3rd game in the series. The first 2 games are also releasing next year, and the 3rd game is the start to the entire trilogy. So, I highly recommend checking out the game. There is a very strong chance that you might fall in love with it just as much as I did. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I would love it if you'd like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know what you think about Dragon Quest, your history with it, or if you have any questions regarding the series. I'd love to hear what you think. Take care, guys.